we're going to be going to the Depression era to make Hoover stew.
I'm going to be making dandelion salad.
Potato pancakes, one of my favorites.
How did families survive the crushing hardship of the Great Depression? Through sheer creativity in the kitchen. From the ingenious Hoover stew to the comforting vinegar pie, these humble dishes fed hungry mouths and fueled the resilience and hope that kept families going during those challenging years. Join us as we examine 20 famous Depression-era foods that faded into history.
Today we're going to be going to the Depression era, it's around the 1930s, to make Hoover stew.
Hoover stew was a popular dish named after President Herbert Hoover. This stew emerged during the Great Depression as a symbol of resilience. It was a good meal for families trying to stretch their limited food supply. Hoover stew was made from simple, inexpensive ingredients like macaroni or noodles, hot dogs, canned tomatoes, and corn or beans. Families adapted the recipe based on whatever ingredient they had on hand. The stew's hearty nature made it filling, especially for large families. Hoover stew was more than just a meal. It became a communal dish often shared among neighbors during challenging times. The stew's popularity reflected the era's ingenuity, turning essential pantry items into something nourishing and comforting. Our next dish cleverly mimics the taste of apples, but doesn't use any apples. It was called mock apple pie.
Mock apple pie, and it uses Ritz crackers as a substitute for apples to make an apple pie.
Mock apple pie became a popular dessert during the Great Depression. It tasted like apple pie without using actual apples, which were often too expensive. Instead of apples, families used Ritz crackers, sugar, water, lemon juice, and cream of tartar to create a filling that tasted remarkably like apples. This pie provided a sweet treat at a time when luxuries were hard to come by. The recipe gained fame after being printed on Ritz cracker boxes in the mid-1930s. The dessert was affordable and brought joy to many households during tough times. It was a creative solution that allowed families to enjoy the familiar comfort of apple pie without breaking the bank. Let's hear about this next dish, which made the Depression era somewhat bearable with its easy ingredients and comforting appeal. Yes, we're talking about cornmeal mush.
Today we are going to be making cornmeal mush. Now, for this recipe, you're going to just need 3 ingredients. You're going to need cornmeal, salt, and water.
Cornmeal mush is a traditional dish popular during the Great Depression in the United States. It was first made in the late 17th century and was a staple for many families, particularly in rural areas where cornmeal was affordable and easily accessible. So how was it made? The essential ingredients included medium grind cornmeal, water, and sometimes salt. In some dish variations, milk or butter were added for extra flavor. Cornmeal mush was often enjoyed as a hot breakfast cereal or a side dish during lunch or dinner. It wasn't about a meal, but a comforting presence during hard times, offering warmth and sustenance. The mush was particularly enjoyed by families facing economic hardships and limited resources. Now we'll discuss the dandelion salad, a delicious escape from depressing times.
Today I'm going to be making dandelion salad with a bunch of dandelions I have here.
Dandelion salad symbolized resourcefulness during the Great Depression in the U.S. It was trendy in the 1930s when many Americans turned to wild greens to supplement their diets. This dish was valued for its affordability and nutrition, making it a staple for those who cannot afford fresh produce from the market. The primary ingredient of the salad was dandelion greens, which were abundant and free. Families often added onions, tomatoes, olive oil, lemon juice, and salt and pepper to enhance the flavor. Some variations included ingredients like bacon or eggs to fill the salad. Dandelion salad was a creative solution for families looking to add fresh greens to their meals without spending money. This dish was enjoyed by families nationwide, especially those in rural areas. Do you want to hear about the meal that helped families make the most of their supplies?
Potato pancakes, one of my favorite potato preparations. It's something I just don't make often enough.
Known as latkes, became a beloved dish during the Great Depression. Found primarily in the U.S., this dish was trendy in areas with European immigrant communities. It was celebrated for its simplicity and the ability to transform essential ingredients into a hearty meal. What was it made from? It was a simple mixture of potatoes, salt and pepper, with optional additions like onions, garlic, and cheese. Families would grate the potatoes, mix them with seasonings, form patties, and fry them until crispy. This dish allowed households to make the most of leftover potatoes or stretch their food supplies further. Families in lower-income households enjoyed potato pancakes. The dish provided a filling and comforting meal during tough economic times. Another comforting dish was milk toast, a simple yet soothing dish.
For today's snack, I'll be making you milk toast.
Milk toast became a comforting dish during the 1930s, the year known for its depressing effects on the nation. It was a simple, soothing meal, particularly favored by those in economically disadvantaged regions across the country. This dish was appreciated for its ease of preparation and the comforting warmth, especially for children and the sick. Let's see how these toasts were made. The primary ingredients included stale bread, milk, and butter. The bread was toasted and then soaked in warm milk with butter. Salt, pepper, or even a sprinkle of cinnamon were added in some variations for extra flavor. Milk toast was often served as a breakfast or a light supper, making it a versatile option for many families. This dish was enjoyed by families nationwide, providing warmth and comfort during challenging times. Now let's explore vinegar pie, a creative dessert showcasing the resourcefulness of Depression-era cooks. Vinegar pie is a unique dessert that originated in the 19th century. It gained special recognition during the Great Depression in the 1930s. It was trendy in the Midwest and Middle Atlantic regions, where it became known as a desperation pie due to its use of inexpensive pantry ingredients. It was embraced during the 30s when fresh fruits were expensive and in limited supply. Making vinegar pie was relatively easy. It only included sugar, vinegar, often apple cider vinegar, flour, water, and sometimes butter or eggs in later versions. Spices like cinnamon or nutmeg were also added for flavor. Vinegar pie provided a sweet, tangy treat that allowed families to enjoy dessert without needing costly fruits. This pie was cherished by families in rural areas who relied on affordable ingredients to create satisfying meals. How do you stretch the food budget and still enjoy nutritious meals? Well, you make a bean sandwich. Bean sandwiches emerged as a practical meal during the Great Depression in the U.S. This dish was trendy in lower-income households nationwide, where families needed affordable and nutritious food options. The recipe's simplicity and the ingredients' availability made it a go-to meal for many. Bean sandwiches were not only nutritious, but also very easy to make. They were cooked quickly by adding mashed beans, often pinto or navy beans, to slices of bread. Mayonnaise, mustard, or chopped onions might also be used for extra flavor in some variations. This dish was economical and provided a good source of protein, making it a sustaining meal. Bean sandwiches were commonly enjoyed by families struggling to make ends meet, particularly as a quick lunch or dinner option. Now let's hear about a dessert that brought a touch of sweetness to challenging times. Eggless, milkless, and butterless cake became popular during the 1930s. Found across the U.S., this dessert was a creative solution for families who needed to make sweet treats without costly ingredients like eggs, milk, or butter. The cake's origins can be traced back to earlier times, including World War I, when similar recipes were used during ingredient shortages. How can you make a cake without using any of the cake ingredients? This cake's ingredients typically included flour, sugar, often brown sugar, water, vegetable oil, and baking soda. Cinnamon and nutmeg were added for flavor, and sometimes dried fruits like raisins or prunes were added for extra sweetness. The simplicity and affordability of the ingredients made depression cake a beloved dessert during hard times. Families across the country enjoyed this cake, finding comfort in its sweet spice flavor. Let's discuss poor man's meal, which filled many bellies during the Great Depression.
Today I am going to be making her poor man's meal. So this recipe comes from a time in American history where things were not available.
Poor man's meal became a staple dish during the 30s, particularly across the United States. It was found and popularized by families struggling to make ends meet, especially in urban and rural areas where food scarcity was a daily challenge. The dish was famous for its affordability and ability to fill meals with minimal ingredients. The poor man's meal was made with readily available ingredients such as potatoes, onions, and hot dogs, with some variations, such as adding salsa or seasoning for extra flavor. The potatoes and onions were sautéed in oil, and the hot dogs were added later, creating a hearty, satisfying dish. This meal was easy to prepare and used inexpensive ingredients in an otherwise expensive market. Poor man's meal was enjoyed by many families who needed to stretch their food budget while providing a comforting meal. This next clever dish gives families the taste of chicken without the expense.
Because what city chicken is actually a mock chicken drumstick.
Mock chicken legs, or city chicken, became popular during the Great Depression. Found primarily in urban areas of the U.S., particularly in cities like Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Cincinnati, this dish was a creative solution for families who needed help to afford real chicken. It offered a way to enjoy a chicken-like meal without the high cost. Want to know how a chickenless meal was prepared? Well, the ingredients for mock chicken legs included pork, or a combination of pork and veal, shaped into drumsticks and skewered. The meat was seasoned, breaded, and then fried or baked to resemble chicken legs. This dish became famous because it provided a satisfying alternative to actual chicken, which was often too expensive to buy. Mock chicken legs were enjoyed by working-class families, giving them the taste of a luxurious meal without the expense. Next, we'll dive into peanut butter soup, known for its nutritiousness and taste. Peanut butter soup became a creative and nourishing dish in the U.S. around 1933. This dish gained popularity in the South and Midwest regions, where peanut butter was an affordable and readily available ingredient. It was a practical way to add protein and flavor to simple meals, helping families stretch their limited resources. It was made using canned tomato soup or cream of celery soup as a base, with creamy peanut butter stirred to create a rich, flavorful broth. Milk or water was often added to adjust the consistency, and some recipes included salt, pepper, or even shredded cheese as a garnish. This soup was famous for its simplicity, affordability, and nutritional boost during tough economic times. Peanut butter soup was enjoyed by families looking for easy-to-prepare meals. Next, we'll explore the simplicity of ketchup sandwiches, a quick and budget-friendly option that became a staple in the 30s. Ketchup sandwiches became a well-known meal during the Great Depression. This simple dish was trendy across the U.S., especially in lower-income households where families needed to make the most of what they had. The dish was a go-to option for those going through financial hardships. It also had a certain appeal for its easy preparation and affordability. Ketchup sandwiches were made from no more than 2 ingredients: ketchup and bread. It's easy enough to guess that they were only ketchup and bread. Some variations may have included butter or margarine to add richness, while others added spices or seasonings for extra flavor. The simplicity of the ingredients meant that nearly every household could prepare this meal, even when other food items were scarce. Ketchup sandwiches were enjoyed by families who needed a quick, budget-friendly meal. It became a nostalgic reminder of resilience during difficult times. Next, we'll explore a sweet and resourceful dessert that comforted many.
My oatmeal pie recipe without corn syrup and with coconut is an easy and delicious old-fashioned dessert.
Oatmeal pie, often called mock pecan pie, became a beloved dessert during the Great Depression. This dish was trendy in the southern U.S., where pecans were usually too expensive for many families. Oatmeal pie provided an affordable alternative that captured pecan pie's rich, sweet flavors without the cost. Oatmeal pie only included unbaked pie crust, oats, sugar, eggs, and corn syrup. Butter, cinnamon, and vanilla were added to enhance the flavor, creating a sweet and satisfying filling. The oats proved to be a clever and cost-effective substitute for pecans. This pie was enjoyed by families looking for a sweet treat that didn't break the bank. It became a symbol of resourcefulness during tough economic times. Next, we have a nutritious and economical dish that sustains many. Let's hear about the delicious cabbage soup.
Today's recipe is a simple cabbage soup that comes together in less than 30 minutes.
Cabbage soup gained widespread popularity in the United States. This dish was particularly famous in rural and urban regions where families needed to stretch their food budgets. Being inexpensive and widely available, cabbage became the star ingredient in this nourishing and hearty soup. Cabbage soup was readily made using chopped cabbage, onions, carrots, potatoes, and sometimes tomatoes. These vegetables were simmered in water or broth and seasoned with salt, pepper, and herbs like thyme or bay leaves. Some recipes included small amounts of meat, such as ham or sausage, to add flavor and protein, though it was often made without meat to keep costs low. Cabbage soup was enjoyed by families who needed a filling meal that was economical and nutritious. What better way to cheer up people than the depression cake? It was another creative dessert that brought sweetness to many tables without using costly ingredients. Depression cake became popular during the Great Depression. This dessert was particularly famous in regions where families struggled to afford essential baking ingredients like eggs, milk, and butter. The cake was created to enjoy a sweet treat without using these expensive items. How was this cake made then? Depression cake included flour, sugar, water, vegetable oil, and baking soda. Vinegar was often added to help the cake rise, and spices like cinnamon or nutmeg enhanced the flavor. Some variations included dried fruits like raisins to add sweetness and texture to the cake. Depression cake was enjoyed by families looking to bring a touch of sweetness to their lives despite the economic hardships. It became a symbol of creativity in that era. Next, we had a dessert that brought happiness to many tables in an otherwise challenging time. Prune pudding became a notable dessert during the Great Depression, gaining popularity across the U.S. This dish was embraced in regions where prunes were affordable and readily available, making it a practical choice for families facing economic hardship. It was appreciated for its nutritional value, as prunes are rich in vitamins and fiber, providing a healthy and filling dessert option. Prune pudding included prunes, sugar, cinnamon, and water. The prunes were cooked until soft and combined with the other ingredients to create a thick, sweet pudding. Cornstarch was often used as a thickening agent, and some recipes added spices like nutmeg for extra flavor. Prune pudding was enjoyed by families who needed a nutritious and affordable dessert that was easy to prepare. Let's hear the dish that turned leftover bread into a comforting and satisfying treat.
Today, I'm going to show you how to make the most delicious bread pudding recipe.
Bread pudding became a cherished dessert across the U.S. in the 1930s. It was trendy in regions where families sought to make the most of leftover stale bread. This dish was famous for its ability to transform simple everyday ingredients into a comforting and delicious treat. Bread pudding was made from stale bread, milk, eggs, sugar, and spices like cinnamon and nutmeg. The bread was soaked in milk and eggs, sweetened with sugar, and flavored with herbs. Some variations added raisins, nuts, or even chocolate for extra richness. Families enjoyed bread pudding because it allowed them to avoid waste and create a satisfying dessert based on what they had. Now we'll dig into mulligan stew, a hearty dish that brought together communities during the Depression using whatever ingredients were available.
Today, I'm going to show you how to cook like a hobo. Let's make a mulligan stew.
Mulligan stew, also known as hobo stew, gained prominence, particularly among transient communities in the 1930s. This dish was trendy in hobo camps along railroad tracks, where people gathered and shared their desired ingredients. The stew became famous for its ability to provide a filling and communal meal using a variety of scavenged or donated ingredients. Mulligan stew was made from whatever ingredients were available. It typically included vegetables like potatoes, carrots, and onions, and whatever meat, such as beef or pork, could be found. The ingredients were combined in a large pot, seasoned with salt, pepper, and herbs, and then simmered over an open fire. Mulligan stew was enjoyed by communities of hobos who offered warmth, nourishment, and a sense of camaraderie. It became a symbol of resilience and resourcefulness during tough times. Next, we'll discuss water pie, a unique and inventive dessert that emerged during the Depression. It uses minimal ingredients to create a sweet treat.
It is water pie time. You heard me right. I am making a pie from water. So cool.
Water pie emerged as a clever dessert during the Great Depression, gaining popularity in the 1930s across the U.S. This dish was especially well known in rural areas where ingredients were scarce, and families needed to make do with what they had. Water pie became famous for its simplicity. It used just a few essential ingredients to create a sweet and satisfying dessert. It was made only from water, flour, sugar, butter, and vanilla extract. The pie was made by pouring water into an unbaked pie crust and adding flour and sugar. Slices of butter were placed over the mixture, and the pie was baked until set with the flour and sugar, creating a custard-like filling. Water pie, a simple yet sweet treat, was cherished by families with limited resources. It symbolized how creativity and resourcefulness could turn almost nothing into a moment of comfort and joy.